It is day 219 of the second Trump administration. And today, the Fed governor, Lisa Cook, says she is fighting Trump's attempt to fire her. Cook says Trump has no authority to remove her and she will not resign. Her attorney, Abby Lowell, says they will sue because the firing lacks any factual or legal basis. But the Wall Street Journal reports that Donald Trump wants to move fast in naming someone to take her spot on the Fed's board. The Journal says two potential candidates are White House economic advisor Stephen Miran and former World Bank Group president David Malpass. NBC News has not confirmed this. But today, the president spoke out about his move against Federal Reserve Governor Cook, and my colleague Garrett Haake has all those details.
Tonight, President Trump facing a new legal battle after his unprecedented move to fire Federal Reserve Board Governor Lisa Cook, overnight declaring Cook hereby removed from her position, saying there is sufficient reason to believe you may have made false statements on one or more mortgage agreements.
She seems to have had an infraction, and she can't have an infraction, especially that infraction, because she's in charge of, if you think about it, mortgages, and we need people that are 100% above board. And it doesn't seem like she was.
But tonight, Cook says she'll sue to keep her job, writing, President Trump purported to fire me for cause when no cause exists under the law, and he has no authority to do so. I will not resign. It comes after Federal Housing Finance Agency Director Bill Pulte accused Cook of declaring on bank forms that two different homes were her primary residence to secure lower interest rates and more favorable loan terms. But Cook has not been charged with a crime and says she is, quote, gathering the accurate information to answer questions about her financial history. She is a Biden appointee, and if she is removed, it could give the president a boost in his bid to get the independent Fed to lower interest rates, to spur the economy and make homes more affordable.
People are paying too high an interest rate. That's the only problem with housing. We have to get the rates down a little bit.
In a statement, the Fed acknowledged Cook's lawsuit fighting Trump's move and says it will abide by any court decision. But I want to make something abundantly clear. The president wants you to think he is trying to fire Lisa Cook because of alleged mortgage fraud. This is not about mortgage fraud. He has been trashing the Fed decisions for months now because he wants rates to be lower, because he wants equity prices to soar. This is not about mortgage fraud. Just like sending National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. and potentially other cities is not really about spikes in crime. Just like attacking universities and forcing big payouts is not really about fighting and stopping anti-Semitism. Just like punishing law firms who work for people Trump doesn't like is not about diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's a very clear theme here. This is all about control and finding as many ways as possible to amass as much power as possible in the presidency. That is what this is about. Now let's get smarter with the help of our leadoff panel tonight. Jeff Mason is here, White House correspondent for Reuters, Leanne Caldwell, chief Washington correspondent for Puck, and Adam Wren, senior national politics correspondent for Politico. Mr. Mason, you are up first. What do we know about where things stand? Was Lisa Cook at work today? Because this is going to get very complicated, because technically the only person to revoke her ID, to stop her paycheck, is Jay Powell. And I cannot imagine Jay Powell will do anything that the president tells him to do that the courts don't.
I think you're right. And it's not entirely clear where Lisa Cook was today, but the Fed statement, which you referenced earlier, suggested that they don't see any change in what's going on with the current makeup of the board now or until there's a court order that forces them to do so. So that's certainly suggests there's a difference of opinion between the Fed, and the president on the action that he initiated with regard to Lisa Cook. A couple other things I think just worth mentioning. Lisa Cook is the first black woman to serve as a governor on the Federal Reserve Board. She's not the first black woman in a high authority position that President Trump has tried to remove or has removed in his short tenure during his second term. I think that's important. I think it's also important, and you got to this very clearly in your statement right before the panel came on, to say or to show that this is part of a broader effort by this president to exert authority and to increase his control over multiple institutions within the government and over the U.S. economy, the global economy, and in general, just society at large. So, and I'm not saying that firing a Fed governor is going to give him control over society, but it's a broader effort that has been a theme of his presidency so far, and is largely based in increasing influence and the power of the presidency.
Adam, I spent my entire day speaking to very serious investors, and not one thinks that this is about mortgage fraud. Does the White House expect anyone to take this thing to be anything other than his relentless campaign against the Fed and quest to get them to lower rates, which, by the way, they may have been willing to do next month with or without the president doing this?
Well, Stephanie, you're talking to maybe the only people here who might be a check on what the president is doing. My colleagues, Kyle Cheney and Josh Gerstein, report tonight that this is likely headed to the Supreme Court eventually. And broadly in past opinions, they've said that there's some judicial hesitancy here in having a check on the Fed because it's a semi-private institution. And ultimately, it's going to be those investors that you're talking to about this and Capitol Hill who are going to be a check, if anybody's going to be a check on what the president is trying to do here in terms of consolidating power.
Leanne, we have been hearing from our colleague at NBC, Alan Smith, about the president's new focus. He is using mortgages to attack his opponents. And today, the Washington Post reported specifically on the agency that's behind this, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, because of the referrals from this small agency that is run by Trump loyalist Bill Pulte. We now have Lisa Cook, Adam Schiff, and Letitia James, all facing Department of Justice probes. Is it fair to say that this is not normal?
Yeah, not normal, a word and a term we can use pretty much every day in this administration. And the interesting thing is how Trump projects so much. He ran his entire campaign about claiming that the Biden administration was weaponizing the government against him, against the Biden's political enemies. And that's exactly what President Trump is doing right now. Maybe not weaponization, but retribution. So instead of using just the levers of the Justice Department, which he has been doing against his political enemies, his political opponents, now he's using government agencies where people, all Americans, have paperwork, have sensitive documents, have their financial information with. And so does it stop here? Are we now going to see some sort of resulting information from for his political enemies coming from the IRS? There's a whole scope of agencies that the president can use to target his political opponents. And, I know that, you talked about this a lot at the top. Jeff said this as well. But since I'm a congressional reporter, one thing that you did forget to mention about where none of this is the reason for why he's actually doing it is DOGE as well. It wasn't about cutting government spending. It was not about shrinking the size of government because of the debt or the deficit. It's, again, like you said, about inserting his way and his thoughts on programs and the government in a way that he wanted, and to once again eliminate control of the role of Congress by expanding his presidential authority stuff.